Okay, so the Staff of Homa banner has come out, and I think it looks really good. The consensus of most content creators is that it's really good, and this is due to a number of reasons, mainly being that the 4-star weapons on the banner are absolutely cracked. The big difference for why I would posit the question of whether you should full send for the Staff of Homa right now is that the last time it was run, there was no way to guarantee it within a reasonable number of pulls. There were tons of whales that got loads of Wolf's Gravestones and kept on missing the Staff of Homa, spending astronomical amounts of money and getting depressed and stressed about it. This time around, the situation is much different, as we can use the epitomized path to actually guarantee ourselves the Staff of Homa within 3 5-star summons. It will be guaranteed as the third one if we set it to be the chartered course. Knowing that we have the capability to actually not be gambling, but just making a very hefty purchase with all of our Primo Gems for the Staff of Homa, leads us into our first question, whether it's actually worth full sending for the Staff of Homa, or should we skip the weapon and just pull on characters that we actually want in the future? To answer this question with my opinion, the TLDR is yes. The long answer depends on who you actually have and what your goals are. You have to answer a number of questions, such as, do you want to have an easier time in Spiral? Do you want to max out your Hu Tao or your Xiao? Do you want to have a versatile DPS polearm that you can give to other random characters like Zhongli? Are you willing to risk getting a 5-star support bow? And finally, the most important, can you actually guarantee that you're going to get a Staff of Homa and be happy in the end? To help you answer these questions, I drew out a little flowchart that outlines some of the core considerations that we need to make before you decide to spend all of your resources of months of saving Primo Gems on a weapon banner. The first bullet point that you have to consider is, do you have a Hu Tao or a Xiao? In my opinion, these are the best people who can utilize the Staff of Homa. Otherwise, it's definitely going to work on people like Zhongli, Xiangling, but you have to decide if you're getting the Staff of Homa and if you want to use it for them, or if you plan on getting Xiao on his rerun, stuff like that. For the next consideration, you have to be willing to not pull any new characters in the next 2 patches. Arguably 4 patches if you're free to play, 2 patches if you're getting Battle Pass and Welkin. So you have to tell me right now that you really don't want to get Ito and you really don't want to get Goro, because they're coming up next, and if you full send on a Homa, if you're not a whale, I don't think you can get them both. After that, I'd ask, do you have 210 wishes? If you do, and you really want to get the Homa, then I think it's at this point safe to say that you can full send for the Staff of Homa. If you don't have 210 wishes, then I'd ask, do you have at least 140 wishes if you really want to get the Homa? If you do, then the strategy I'd recommend is pulling up to 50 or 60 pity. So if you're already at 30, then only do 20 or 30 more summons. And once you reach that, then stop. The goal with these summons getting up to 50 or 60 is to try to pull a 5-star early. Because if you have 140 wishes, and say you're actually able to pull a 5-star, it doesn't matter if it's the Homa, within 10 pulls, then you still have 130 wishes left, which is almost enough to actually get both of the other 5-stars that you need, and guarantee yourself a Homa with the epitomized path. What you don't want to do is waste 1 or 2 5-star kind of steps in the epitomized path and not get that guarantee when you're going for a weapon banner. Because if you get 2 5-stars and then you don't have enough to finish getting the Homa, the weapon banner changes, then you're going to lose those 2 steps that count towards that third guarantee. On your next weapon banner, you're going to have to start from 0, and you won't be guaranteed the limited 5-star until you pull 3 new weapons. So that's why I'd recommend not wasting the epitomized path, but if you build 50 or 60 summons, then that pity that you build, the 50 or 60, will carry over to the next banner. So what you can do is save this and wait for a new weapon banner where you only basically need about 150 summons. Worst case scenario, if you get 5 stars within a 70, and then a 10 by finishing up the pity that you've already built up. If you get the 5-star early, then hopefully you have enough to guarantee yourself the Homa. So that's why if you still have 140 wishes and you really want to get the Homa and you're willing to give it all up, then kind of doing this early pity strategy and seeing if you can pull a 5-star early is a good way to not ruin your epitomized path, but also build up pity for a future weapon banner where you do utilize the guarantee. If you have less than 140 wishes, I'd simply recommend it's just not worth pulling on the banner. At that point, that's the gambling. That's like, there's no guarantee. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. And you have to be willing to kind of throw that money away, just like people do in the stock market. My recommendation would be, if you have less than 140, don't risk it, because I'm a very boring, let's say, mathematical, calculated guy, and I try to do things rationally, so guaranteeing myself the Homa seems more rational than risking. But also taking the risk, as long as you're willing to not get anything and you're not going to be like, oh my goodness, I didn't get a Homa. As long as you're not surprised by that situation and you're completely willing to have that as an end result and you won't lose any sleep over it, then by all means go for it. But I'd prefer to at least have it guaranteed, so having those 210 summons ready, even if I have to give it all up, at least I know I'm walking away with one copy of a Homa. So next, I'd ask, what are the potential outcomes that I might end up with? So firstly, the best case scenario is that with less than 70 pulls, your first 5-star is Staff of Homa, and then you get off the banner, you wash your hands, you're done with it, and you're really happy because you still have a shitload of summons left. You probably won't get a lot of 4-stars, but that's okay because the Homa is the most prized possession. You can keep summoning, but I would highly recommend not doing that. The next scenario, which I'd say is a middle case scenario because you'll still have some primo gems left over, is if you get one 5-star, so this might be the Elegy of the End, or something like a Skyward Harp or a Skyward Pride. Any of the other standard banner weapons might show up as one of the 5-stars, but then your second 5-star is Staff of Homa, and you get all of this with less than 140 pulls. You should get, roughly speaking, 12 4-star weapons, give or take, depending on how many characters or off-banner 4-stars you get, and your average refinement at this point should be about 1 or a little bit over 1. This would be really good because you'd still have about 70 of your summons saved for future characters. Now, the worst case scenario that might be a reality for a lot of people is that they get 2 5-star weapons, Elegy and then say Skyward Blade, and then finally they get a Staff of Homa and they've used up all of their 210 summons, going to soft pity 3 times and proccing the epitomized path. In my opinion, this isn't even such a bad outcome. Of course, it depends on how many other 5-star weapons you have, if you really can actually use any of the Skyward weapons, or do you already have so many 5-star weapons that these don't actually help your account. But for example, on my account where I only have 2 5-star weapons, basically any other weapon, even if I'd get a copy of one of these 2, is usable on one of my other characters to strengthen some of my teams. So I can use it and it will make my account better. That's not the only other benefit of going all the way to 210 summons. You will also get a ton of the 4-star weapons. You should be getting some of them to R3, R4, potentially R5, depending on how they actually distribute when you pull them in. But most of these weapons are really good, and I'm not going to go into details for each of them, but I'll put a screenshot of a short description of where I think each one shines. The worst one is likely the Rain Slasher, because I think it only has one good use case scenario, which is for an electrocharged Beidou comp. So someone like Child, Beidou, Fischl, and Xingqiu, it would work really well to make Beidou do a lot of damage, especially at higher refinements. Otherwise, there's almost no other uses I can think of for it. The Elegy of the End is a very special weapon, as it's a support bow that buffs the entirety of your team. So even though if you give it to Venti, it might not make Venti do more damage than he would with a stringless, it should provide quite a good benefit for the rest of your team. The Elegy is definitely not one of the worst weapons that you could get on a banner like this, as it used to be a limited weapon. Should theoretically be the best in slot for Venti, but it's also more from a supporting perspective. In the end, I'm pretty sure if you could find a bow user who is sort of in a supportive role on one of your teams, it should be able to strengthen the team in Spiral Abyss, and namely if you use it to buff someone like Hu Tao with your guaranteed Homa. It becomes very worth it at that point. There's a few final questions I'd still like to quickly chime in that I've seen a lot of people asking. First of all, is C1 Hu Tao or Homa better to go get? I think if you have the option between the two and you can guarantee yourself a Homa, I would go for the Homa. My C0 Hu Tao will actually do more damage with a Homa than if I get a C1, because I know how to jump cancel. I heard people in my old jump cancel video saying that even on mobile they can do the jump cancel and it's not too bad to do. So if you're a mobile player thinking that, oh, I'd rather go and get the C1 so I can do dash cancels, I'm not sure it's really worth it in that case. The Homa is a weapon that works on a lot of different characters and you can switch it around. If, say, Hu Tao theoretically gets outdated in 5 years, you might be able to still move the Homa onto someone else, but her constellation is going to be completely stuck with her, and I would rather just have the weapon, even though it's a little bit more expensive to go get. The next question would be, what is the longevity of the banner's resources? So if you do hyper invest into it and do your 210 summons, how long will the resources that you get actually last and help you in the game? I'd estimate that they should still be very relevant for the next 2 or more years. There's 2 of the weapons are brand new, and so they feel a little bit power crept compared to some of the older 4-star weapons. The Wavebreaker's Fin and the Moon's Moon Bow. Even though for the bow there's not really any characters that stand out currently that'll be super useful for it, but I think as new bow characters are released that have a high focus on using their burst, this bow will definitely be their best in slot 4-star and is really good to pick up right now while it's here, because later it's not going to be available. The risks are if they run Ganyu right after and you've really been waiting and saving for Ganyu and you really want to get Ganyu, then you're not going to be able to get her. So basically the risk is for, I'd say, the next 2 or 4 patches, you're not really going to be able to guarantee anyone at that time. So this is something that you really have to think through and come to terms with before you actually go and pull and dump everything into your Homa banner. Anyways, thanks for watching the video if you made it all the way here, and I hope if you go pull for Hu Tao or the Staff of Homa that you get really lucky and you get whoever you want. And if you're saving, then I hope you have a lot of Primo Gems saved up, because there's been a lot of banners to skip recently. So good luck getting Ito or anyone you want in the future.